So continuing on with part 2 now, from the the cells in your body, the sentient cells, they have organ-like organelles, okay? They eat, they have an excretory function, a respiratory function. Like I said, they can read their environment, okay? So this kind of makes sense when you start to hear, treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated yourself, because at the end of the day, your world is you inverted inside out. I've had many experiences where your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Your frequency determines the type of things you attract in your life, right? So based on my mentality, I'm gonna have a certain perspective about life. So I'm never really gonna see the world for how it is. I see the world for how I am, right? So if I, for example, have had just a peek into seeing how I am one with all these things out here, I am not going to have the appetite to want to eat another animal, okay? However, from a different perspective, you can also see and say, when you do eat an animal, what are you actually feeding, right? Like I said, everything is information for the body. So there are many sides and versions to you, to what you think you are. And that's why I've made videos on redefining the meaning of everything in your life, as far as like even just what you're ingesting, right? I'm gonna tie in that video so you can actually see what I was talking about. I don't want to tie too much information here because it would make the video crazy. But looking at this, the vegan philosophy, in my opinion, is rooted out of right and wrong, or good and evil. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is good and bad? Because that's also subjective to the individual. So see the way I see them, because I went to New York and I've seen it happening already, but they show you videos of these animals getting slaughtered and tortured, raped and whatnot, because these are the favorite words they like to use, right? And what it's doing is it's kind of like it's invading your space to some extent, but it's also, when you look at it from this point, it's pulling on your heartstrings. So they're trying to convince you to become a vegan, right? For you to feel sorry based on the videos they're showing you. So when I see religious folks, for example, they'll show you how Jesus Christ was tortured and whipped and hung on the cross and he died for our sins. This is kind of like showing you an image to pull on your heartstrings. So people start to say, well, this man died for our sins, and you polarize to the side of good, and now you're against evil, okay? What is evil, though? Evil, in my opinion, when I look at evil, I've always said evil is inversion. So there's a religion, there's you can follow God, whatever that definition means to you, Jesus Christ. You can follow Jesus Christ based on, programming, images that pulled on my heartstrings, stories I've heard about Jesus Christ that would make me believe and think that I should be a Christian or a Catholic or whatnot. And because I've had conversations with religious folks, and it just came down to the fact that they're religious because that's just what their parents were, and that's the beliefs that were passed down from their parents, right? So they became that, but they don't know God. They've never had any interactions or any spiritual interactions or experiences with God. They don't even know what God is, right? There's many people that say God is Jesus and that Jesus is the Son of God. So it's like, you don't know what God is. But God, it could be God is, well, who's the God of hell, right? Satan, the devil, and whatnot. I mean, there's many different gods. So what God are you actually praying to? I made a video on vampiric energy, which I'll tie in the 2 videos in the description of this video so you can see what I'm talking about when it comes down to vampiric energy and how we perceive these characters outside and the type of essence that they require back from you, which is basically your superpower, and how you actually become one of these vampires. See, there's people who go door to door and try to convince people to become religious, right? To become Baptist church or, you know, Jehovah's Witness or whatnot. Vegans do the exact same thing, and it's in a way invasive, right? It's invasive, but they think they're doing it for the betterment of good, right? Because the reason that Baptists and, you know, Catholics and all people do this is just to they're in a battle against evil. So vegans are in a battle against evil by trying to convert you to become vegans. So here's what happens. They go out in public and even invade supermarkets, invade certain businesses, and disrupt, right, businesses from making money because they have a certain perspective or opinions or points of view toward their religious concept of veganism and trying to protect animals by preventing people from shopping. They just put up videos and signs and say, become vegan, right? They stand in front of the meat aisle and show you the videos of these animals getting tortured, raped, and slaughtered, okay? And then here's what happens though. There's people who will even be bothered, but then there's business owners that say they cannot be there. But why are they there? And then they're basically disrupting. The way I see this happening is like pests in a garden, okay? Because we can look at this from a higher perspective, not the human perspective. But I can have pests in a garden invading my plants. That me, if I'm growing plants in the interest to grow fruit, right? To not have to eat animals. So I'm growing fruits. But then I've got these vegan insects that are eating my plants, right? So I depend on these carnivorous insects to come and get rid of these vegan pests that are eating my plants, that are preventing my plants from thriving so I can eat my fruit and I don't have to eat meat. But then here's the thing though. I can go the chemical route and start to basically use insecticides and pesticides to abolish and eliminate these vegan pests because they're categorized as pests because they're an invasion, right? But vegans say it's okay to kill rats or cockroaches or these invasive insects in your house because they're interrupting your living space. Okay, so because it's you interrupted, then it's okay for you to kill them. But when you interrupt the business, it is not okay, right? It's not okay. So these pests, I can go the natural route, or I can go the chemical route, or I can let nature take its course. I can leave them there, right? Because I'm gonna have pests to begin with if the soil is weak. And pests attack weak plants. They don't attack strong plants. They'll attack weaker plants. So that's the only reason why I even got pests there, right? So look at this and keep this in mind about how vegans invade spaces and whatnot. I mean, it's use your imagination, okay? But everything really is as above, so below. I'm just letting you know. As within, so without. So I've got these vegan insects on my plants now. I'm gonna leave them there. I'm gonna leave them there. I'm not gonna panic as the observer, as the god of my realm. If I'm gardening, I'm the god of that garden. I'm gonna leave them there. I'm gonna let them be. Nature takes its course, and all of a sudden, a couple of days later, I may see all these whiteflies now, or any one of these little vegan pests get decimated by a swarm of ladybugs. And I've seen it happen already. But if I would have taken action ahead of time by my paranoia or my bullshit, my human fucking emotions toward it, I would have killed the food source for the beneficial bugs to come into my garden and kill those insects, right? So nature balanced itself because I let nature run its course, right? Now, veganism is not something that needs to be pushed on anybody, okay? This is why when you change, the world around you will change. Okay? Perspective, perceptions about life. Creation is already made. You're not gonna change anything in creation. You can only change the way you see things, and your world will change for you. So let's say, for example, if there's a catastrophe happening in the planet, right? You may have your mental state so fucked up that you will be experiencing that catastrophe, while I may just be observing it at the comfort of my sofa and watching it in the news on TV and being like, wow, that's fucking crazy what's happening. And I may go and sit in my pool drinking my margaritas and enjoy my fucking life. But see, we're in the same reality. Everything's happening, only you may be experiencing it directly, while I may just be hearing about it, right? So you'll experience the same shit, but you may just hear about it. So that's why I said creation's made. Your world is you inverted inside out. But see, these things that we see outside of us as perceiving to be the things we're against are needed. Because if the entire planet went toward one polarized idea, it would cease to exist. So polarities need to happen. We're in a realm that's ran on duality, right? So balance is the only thing that's key here. All right? So the arguments between who's right, who's wrong, it's just they're both arguing with themselves. And they're arguing about the same shit. It's just that you don't see the type of things you do. That's why they say, judge not unless you decide to be judged. But you're pointing the finger at something, you're doing the exact same thing, only this is why they say it's mirrors, and you're projecting and you're getting a reflection back, but only you're not going to get a direct reflection back all the time. No different than if I raise my right hand here, I'm raising my right hand, but I'm looking at myself on screen and it appears that I'm raising my left hand, right? But I'm really raising my right hand. So it's never going to be a direct reflection or a direct mirror. You know, it may be a reflection that's not exactly an exact reflection, but it's still a reflection. So you're not going to get rid of carnivores or none of that shit, you know? So the same way when you veganism, this is what I was going to say, veganism is not something that should be pushed on anybody, something that should be realized. No different than religion shouldn't be pushed on anybody. You know what I'm saying? Religion is, you realize the God in you, you will realize the God in others. You get what I'm saying? So with veganism, if somebody realizes that these animals are your actual brothers and sisters, and you're not just doing it for hypocritical purposes or because your ego fell in love with the philosophy, it's inauthentic. You get what I'm saying? It's inauthentic. A lot of people even just try to become raw fruitarians or vegans just to fucking, it's to cater to their fucking appearance or their illusion, their ego, because they say that it's anti-aging. Oh, it's anti-aging, so I'm going to become a raw fruitarian, but there's really no love behind the reason why you're a fruitarian or a vegan. It's just, you're just into the either the concept of good and bad, or the vanity purposes behind why you're even a raw fruitarian or vegan to begin with. Some people do it for animal ethics, for, you know, they say it's against animal rights, but then again we can look at it from a deeper perspective and say, well, everything is there's no cause of anything, but in this realm that we're in, everything's perceived to be cause and effect, right? If I, for example, have negative thought patterns, right? Like poverty is a consciousness. I have negative thought patterns about money, or negative thought patterns about people who have money, let's say, or any of the sort. Let's say I have disruptive thought patterns toward abundance in any kind of way. I'm gonna stay in poverty. My life will show me poverty, because that's where energy flows, where attention goes. So that's where I'm putting my energy on, is poverty, right? So if I become aware of these thought patterns, I can change my reality. But this is passed down by my parents. So what I'm doing is I am absorbing my reality as a child, and I may grow up to be just like them because my parents were poor, But if I become aware of the bullshit that they've been doing, I can change my negative thinking, right? And I became aware of a way to make money, and now I just broke that, let's say, generational curse. Because it's like a poverty mindset is kind of like a curse, right? It's limiting. You don't get to experience your reality the way you want to. You get what I'm saying? A Christ is a consciousness as well. Awareness of the Christ in you. You're aware of the Christ in others. You're even aware of the Christ that's sleeping in everybody. So you tend to not judge, but you can see why you see those things in them, because most of those things are in you to some aspect, right? So whenever you look at, for example, let's say humans, right? We talk about this concept of reincarnation, right? How do you know you keep reincarnating here? Only because you have so much deep-rooted belief and attachments and in love with humanity to some extent that you just keep coming back as a human. Are you able to accept the process of aging and just letting the body go? You know what I'm saying? When it's time to let go, right? You can actually gauge this even by just sitting in a dark space and see how long you can sit there without trying to, you know, become so anxious to the fact to want to check your phone or go toward the light to get out of that room. Because you just become anxious and stressed out to the fact where you're not... See, when it's becoming a light body is you being able to actually stand the dark or see in the dark. See, out of darkness comes light, but you're looking at the darkness outside of you when in actuality you are the actual darkness. You're the one actually lighting up this reality. The sun ain't lighting the reality. You could collapse that sun into existence. The sun is here because you are opening your eyes, observing that sun into your reality. You have something called the solar plexus. You have something called the heart. The heart, anagram for heart is earth, right? You have atom, apple. Meanwhile, you say the word, creation was created with the word, you're right? The word. And you got something called the atom's apple. I mean, there's many different ways to look at this shit, right? But, and then we say, and I'm gonna make a video on why everything is sex, okay? Everything is sex. But now, this is why I was even leading up to this, is the animals. How do you know these animals that are getting raped, murdered, and tortured in these slaughterhouses, how do you know that they're not supposed to go through that, right? How do you know they're not supposed to go through that? Only because they may have been a serial killer, rapist, and a torturer in their past life, if we believe in this concept of reincarnation and past lives and whatnot. Because I made videos on, you know, how do you know what you've been doing in your past lives or whatnot? I mean, I basically try to gauge what I've always been doing. I mean, based on, I can say who I was in my past life based on what I'm into and what I'm doing now. What are my interests and things that I want to experience now is what I've always been doing, right? So when you break a pattern, you can have a different experience. At once upon a time, I believe certain things to be true, and I don't believe them to be true now, right? I believe in humanity so much and in this physical realm so much, not realizing that from the metaphysical spaces where everything is started from a thought to some extent, right? That I neglect that and stay just in physical. And I keep experiencing more of the physical aspect of things. Meanwhile, I think that everything is just happening by chance and not realize that I am the one creating it. Whether I'm conscious or unconscious of it, I'm still creating it. Right? Some people wonder why they are depressed. Why are they suicidal and whatnot? Where is that rooted from though? But you always want to suppress it with a drug. If somebody is depressed, they may want to drink and smoke weed or do whatever, or fucking take crack to mask their problems, right? So a lot of these people are masking their problems through food, and it don't matter what fucking diet you're on, vegan or carnivore. You're masking your issues in humanity with a diet. When you fast, you will start to actually see the real shit, okay? And you'll start to see what your natural true state is, okay? Because here's the thing though, if you're so much for animal rights and activism towards shit, the real true way of respecting life is actually breatharian. But is people even capable of being a breatharian? See, here's the thing. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. People eat to get energy, right? Because everything is energy. But most of the foods you're eating make you feel lethargic. They make you sleepy. Sometimes when you eat, you get that, you yawn and you get all tired, right? So it makes you feel some form of lethargy. But that's because the foods that you're eating are robbing you of energy. And then in kind, your body robs calcium from the skeletal matrix to balance out all these acids that you put in there. As within, so without, right? So breatharianism, right? When you are running out of air, you're running out of life. You're gasping for air whenever you're exercising, right? Because acids are building up. So you look for air to alkalize your body. When you work out, you develop lactic acid. So what do? You breathe properly. There's also active stretching, which enhances recovery, okay? But everything is controlled by the breath. Everything. There's life force in the air, but is that really air you're breathing, Neil? What are you getting out of the air? What do you get out of the diets that you polarize to? Nutrition. Some want to be bigger bodybuilders. Some want to prove that veganism builds a bigger body, right? And it makes you stronger. And some want to debate that carnivorism is the, real way to go to build muscle and whatnot. But it's all human fucking concepts, human ideas. You're not really human. You are not even this human body. And I've heard somebody say, who's vegan, who wants to actually transfer their consciousness from their body into an AI, which means that you are not the body. So in other words, when you're aware and you are that consciousness, what are you in actuality then? So that means you're not the body, right? So you're thinking into just humanity, right? But I'm gonna make another video when what real evolution is not. I'm gonna make that in another video. What true evolution is, as far as like the animals you experience outside of you, and you actually even being in real true Christ consciousness, kind of like a real abundant consciousness that kind of leaves poverty in the back burner. Yet it's not to say that it doesn't exist. For me to be abundant, poverty has to exist. For me to say I am abundant, for me to say I am healthy, unhealthiness has to exist. Or what are you just is, right? You ain't shit, or are you, but because you ain't shit, you could be everything, right? But I'm gonna talk about the evolution part now, okay? Talk soon.